Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. So we're just going to continue our tutorial. So as I mentioned earlier, or in my previous video, we are using this Google Colaboratory to run some Julia codes. And when and just to recap, when we say programming languages, these are actually languages that the computer can understand, which we can take advantage so that we can create some instructions to process some of the data that we have, in this case the Quran. So you can, just like the natural languages where we have so many natural languages, like for example Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Tagalog, Bahasa, and so on and so forth. In the world of programming languages, we also have so many programming languages. One of those is say JavaScript, Java, C Sharp, F Sharp, what else? Julia in this case, which we are going to use, and Python. We also have Python. We also have Rust. We also have Zig, for example. We also have Go, and so on and so forth. Okay, these programming languages, they only differ. Of course, they have differences in their design as to how you're going to construct the instructions or the grammar or the syntax of that programming language, and that's their differences. Of course, there are many other differences, right? But this is similar to in natural languages, which in this case we have several options as well, right, to communicate with the computer. So we are using Julia in this case, right? And you can think of Julia as a, like, if again, you can think of it like as or just for us to create some instructions that the computer can understand. But maybe in just in simple description of that one is that you can think of it like a very advanced calculator. Okay, so if you have a basic calculator which can do arithmetic like 1 plus 1, 1 minus 1, and so on and so forth, and then you have now a scientific calculator which can do many other complex computations, like for some derivative integration and so on and so forth, right, and other statistical analysis as well. Julia can do all of that plus some custom functionality, custom instructions that we, the users, can also create, right? So there you go. Now this Google Collaboratory, just to continue on this platform, there are many other functionalities as well, which we can use. And so the reason why it is called Notebook is that apart from the fact that you can write Julia codes and run Julia codes, you can also create some, you can also write some text in here to describe what type of codes that you're using, that you are doing here, right? So if I click text here and I double click here to enter the text, I can add some, say, heading and so on, or if I want it to be bold or italicized and so on and so forth, right? And it will actually show the preview here. So for example, basic arithmetic. So this is the code that I write. This is actually markdown. The code that you write here is not Julia, but it's actually markdown. It's a typesetting language that you can use to write some HTML codes that will, anyways, not HTML I'd say, but rather for you to render some text in here and with some basic format, I'd say, you can actually use markdown. So the name of this typesetting, typesetting is called markdown. So there you go, that's the name. You can search about that and you can follow that, the coding, how to write markdown codes, right? You can search for it. So for example, if I want to make this as a heading in markdown, I can just add here a number sign, and there you go. So this is a heading now. As you can see, it's very big, for example, and I say subheading here, so I can just add here double number sign or subheading here. So as you can see, the size actually differs, right? So for now, we're just going to say we are dealing with basic arithmetic, and as you can see, it will actually becomes a section. So as you can see, I can toggle this, and it will actually hide. Then I can add another section, maybe here. Say I'd say trigonometry. Say codes, assuming, yeah. Then I could say just sine of 1, for example. Right, this is a Julia code already, and then I can actually section it, right, as you can see. So it's actually being sectioned. So it's called notebook, right? Simply because you can write Julia codes plus some notes in it, right? That's why it's called notebook. So for example, I want to say this section talks about basic arithmetic, and then I can also add some images and so on and so forth. I can add a list and so on and so forth, right? So that's one of the features of this Google Colaboratory. So yeah, there you go. And so that's the, at least at a high level, the other functionalities of this Google Colaboratory. And you can also move your, say, cell. So if I want to move it down, so I can move it here or move it up, for example. And then I can also add some comment, for example, in this one. If now for this one, we're not going to explore this one yet. This is actually meant for if you have, say, some other users who will collaborate in creating this notebook. Like for example, for your Google Docs, right? You can actually add some comments, for example, so that you can collaborate with your team, right? And so on and so forth. So we're not going to explore that part yet. But yeah, but basically that's the other features of this Google Colaboratory. And then yeah, maybe in my next video, that's where we're going to really deep dive into the language itself. Now that we've, I think, more or less explored the features of this Google Collaboratory. So if you want to add a new notebook, create a new notebook, you can actually go to File and New Notebook and so on and so forth, right? And there are many other options here as well. And here at the sidebar, as you can see here, I can also look at the table of contents here of my notebook. I can also find and replace some values. I can also look into some snippets, right? But the thing is, the snippets here is not actually for Julia. Most of these are actually for Python. You don't have to touch this part. This one is when we want to connect to some other applications, right? And we want to control that applications using some codes that we are going to write here. This is the part where we connect to that application, but this is very advanced already and we're not going to touch this. And then we have here our files. So you might be confused, what do I mean by files here? So earlier in my previous video, I told you that the way this notebook runs is that we've set the Google gave us a server for us to run these codes. And so basically that server, you can think of it like a computer, a Google computer where Julia is running, and then every time we execute or run a code in this notebook, it will actually connect to that computer and it will execute or run these Julia codes, right? And then whatever the result that will be actually passed into this one, into this interface, so that we can display the output, right? So basically the Google Collaboratory we have here is simply the front end, and the computer that's actually running the codes that we are writing in the front end is the Google server, which has Julia in it. And so that server, basically, as I mentioned earlier, you can think of it like a computer. And so in that computer, we also have some files in it that we can access here, right? And we can also connect this to our Google Drive. We can actually connect our Google Drive here so that we can download, or we can download our files in Google Drive into our notebook, right? So that we can run it. So if you have some other data in your Google Drive, you can actually mount your Google Drive by clicking this button, and it will actually mount your Google Drive so that you can then see the files you have in Google Drive in this um, page as well, or in this panel. And you can also import it into your Google Note, into your uh, Julia notebook to run some analysis. So yeah, so that's basically the um, um, features of this Google Colab. But we also have here at the very bottom some variables, and we're going to explore this in the future or in our succeeding tutorials. And then we also have terminal. You can think of it, if you know CMD, command prompt in Windows, or terminal in Mac. I'm using Mac here. So basically this is the terminal of that server that I mentioned earlier, right? But I doubt we're going to touch this. This is a bit advanced already, but let's see if you're going to touch this, right? For now, we're not going to touch that, and we just um, um, work with our Google Notebook here. Now, lastly, since we have now ChatGPT and other Gen AI, right? You can also, there is now new functionality, which this is actually for Gemini. So I can actually click that, and I can also create some prompt, and write some prompt. Like, for example, write a Julia code for loading CSV file. So if I enter that, it will actually, so you will actually send that prompt to Gemini, and Gemini will try to answer, and then maybe, I guess, we can actually then import it into this notebook. So I'm not sure it's actually working, but basically whatever this is, it's simply actually accessing Gemini, and actually give us code. So this is the output of Gemini. So as you can see, it actually inserted a cell and actually gave us the code, the Julia code for loading CSV files, right? So yeah, for now we're not going to use this, but yeah, you have this feature that you can also use, right? So I guess that's it for this video, and hoping in our next tutorial that's, I guess, the time where we can focus on Julia programming language itself instead of the platform, since we've basically explored the platform already, right? So yeah, assalamu alaikum.